McLaughlin, I appreciate we heard, and now that we've seen this August 6th presidential daily briefing, after we've seen that August presidential daily briefing, it was causing me to sort of have serious questions about how these daily briefings are organized. But my guess is the president has not seen, President Bush has not seen the information about who Al-Qaeda was. My guess is that President Bush today, he may just be discovering it for the first time, that we knew in 1996 that bin Laden was responsible for shooting down helicopters in Mogadishu. And this was in, this was in the trial in 2001. It doesn't appear to me that he was briefed in transition. It doesn't appear to me that that was brought to his attention. In other words, I think even as late as 2001, we were describing bin Laden as a terrorist, not somebody that had a substantial army and substantial capability and a history that went back long before 1998. I mean, the President says you meet with him practically every day. Did you bring that presentation to him? Did you describe as the walk-in did in 1996? As he described in the trial in 2001, did you bring that information to the president and say this is an army that's been engaged in an effort against the United States of America all the way back at least till 1993?
Well, whether I took it back in '93 or not, sir, I don't recall, but we certainly walked through Al-Qaeda, its organization, the threat it posed, its previous affiliation with bombings and activities over a concerted period of time. But I'll go back and look at whether that was specifically raised. I don't recall it.
I appreciate it. And I'm going to do something I shouldn't do, which is yield back my time before my green light, before my red light goes on. So.
According to interviews of current and retired senior military officials and Department of Defense civilians about U.S. military options for capturing or killing Osama bin Laden, cruise missile strikes in August of 1998, following the embassy bombings in East Africa, were the only use of U.S. military force against bin Laden or his terrorist network in Afghanistan prior to September 11, 2001. On occasions, President Clinton and his advisors contemplated additional missile strikes against bin Laden. In each situation, the intelligence community lacked actionable intelligence for a capture or kill operation by military means. Mr. Clark described the problem. Quote, Clinton administration considered additional military strikes against Afghanistan. We now know that and only know one of these redaction occasions was the intelligence correct, end quote. Actionable intelligence was particularly difficult to obtain since killing or capturing bin Laden required knowing where he would be when cruise missiles arrived at the target area, not where he had been when they were launched. Several senior CIA officers who were interviewed, including the Deputy Director for Operations, two former CTC chiefs, a former chief of Counterterrorism Center's bin Laden unit, and redaction. Thus, CIA's general reluctance to rely on a single source of information or recommend missile launches based on human intelligence alone was compounded by concerns about the reliability of the information. In addition, policymakers sought information on the presence of non-combatants and property that might be damaged in a strike. The interviewees also mentioned contingency plans to launch additional cruise strikes against bin Laden had the highest intelligence community been able to obtain precise information on his location. As former National Security Advisor Sandy Berger explained in the joint inquiry, quote, unfortunately, after August 1998, we never again had actionable intelligence information reliable enough to warrant another attack against bin Laden or his key lieutenants. If we had, President Clinton would have gotten the order. The president ordered 2 submarines loaded with cruise missiles on principal deployment off the coast of Pakistan for that very purpose. We also were engaged in a number of covert efforts I cannot discuss in this unclassified format, end quote. According to a CIA document in December of 1999, the United States Special Operations Command had been tasked to begin planning and was working closely with CIA. The joint inquiry did not identify any operations that came as a result of this planning. In an interview with the joint inquiry, General Hugh Sheldon, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, explained the military options beyond cruise missile strikes. In the fall of 2000, he prepared a paper containing 12 or 13 options for using military force against bin Laden. Several options reportedly involved U.S. boots on the ground in Afghanistan and were aimed at capturing bin Laden. General Sheldon, along with the Secretary of Defense William Cohn, discussed these options with National Security Berger in late 2000, after Mr. Berger had expressed impatience with U.S. efforts to get bin Laden. The Military Joint Chiefs Director of Operations described the military option paper as an effort to educate the National Security Advisor about the extraordinary complexity of the boots on the ground option. According to this officer, the military did not receive any tasking to develop these options further. Joint Inquiry requested a copy of both the paper detailing the military options as well as the Military Joint Chiefs pre-9/11 strategic plan for Afghanistan that is discussed below. The National Security Council denied the request, although a senior officer in the Military Joint Chiefs was allowed to brief the joint inquiry on these options. Former Chairman Shelton said the options could have been executed very quickly, but depended on the intelligence community obtaining actionable intelligence. He said CIA never provided such intelligence and the military had never been asked to obtain it. Richard Clark explained that the overwhelming message to the White House from the uniformed military leadership was, "We do not want to do this." Mr. Clark also said that the military repeatedly came back with the recommendations that their capability not be utilized for commando operations in Afghanistan. According to Counterterrorism Center officers, the military levied so many requirements for highly detailed actionable intelligence before conducting an operation, far beyond what the intelligence community was ever likely to obtain, that U.S. military units were effectively precluded from conducting operations against bin Laden's organization on the ground in Afghanistan before September 11th. As noted above, the joint inquiry heard conflicting testimony from CIA officers about the intelligence community obtaining actionable intelligence. For instance, one former Counterterrorism Center officer told the joint inquiry, redacted. The military's Joint Chiefs Director of Operations also mentioned a strategic plan developed by the Joint Chiefs as late 2000 for dealing with the Taliban regime. The U.S. military was coming to the same conclusion as the intelligence community. Getting bin Laden meant dealing with the Taliban regime first and shutting down the sanctuary in Afghanistan.